Now, back to the Property Tax Show with Brad Hayes, president of Illinois Tax Appeal Services on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back. With me in the studio is Dr. Gordon J. Kinzler, candidate for U.S. Congress, Illinois District Number 6. Dr. Kinzler is a dedicated family man, a surgeon, local Park District Commissioner, volunteer, and lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve. He and his wife, Jennifer, have lived in Glen Ellyn for over 2 decades, along with their daughter, Allie, and their son, Andrew. Jay is hardworking, committed to his community, and passionate about the future of America. This passion has compelled him to challenge the Washington establishment to represent the wonderful people of Illinois' 6th Congressional District. Dr. Kinzler hopes that his message will inspire others to stand up and fight for America's future, and humbly asks for your vote on March 15th. Welcome, Dr. Kinzler, and thank you for joining me.
Well, Brad, thanks, and thanks for that great introduction. Maybe we should just end the interview there.
Right there.
I don't know if I can improve on any of it, but thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Why don't you tell us why you want to become a U.S. Congressman?
Well, I've always been involved in local politics, and I'm, as you pointed out in your segue, I'm in the Army Reserve. I was just down at Fort Benning in September. I basically go down there when they're short on physicians. I work at the troop hospitals. And I have to say that I've never seen troop morale as low as it's been since I've been in the military. I've been in now about 8 years. I joined when President Bush was president during the surge in Iraq. And I've been at Walter Reed, Fort Benning, and Fort Sam Houston. And I hold our commander-in-chief mostly responsible for that, but I also hold our Republican Congress responsible. 2 years ago, we gave voters, all the listeners, especially the conservatives, especially the Republican conservative voters of Congressional District 6, they gave those Republicans a real mandate 2 years ago. We have the biggest Republican majority that we've had in over 80 years, and that we gave them a mandate to put a roadblock in front of this executive branch, this commander-in-chief, and basically they just rolled over and played dead. And so when I came back, I just kind of committed myself, and my wife said, "Go ahead, do it." And so we went out and got on the ballot, and we've put together a great team and decided we're going to go for it. So, hopefully as the show unfolds, we'll go over a lot of the other more details. But that was probably the moment that kind of put me over the top. That said it's time to challenge the status quo, the career politicians, the status quo in Washington.
It seems as though with each president, each politician, every time we change one, the vision changes. What is your vision for the United States?
Well, when our founding fathers first had this great idea called America, they meant for you to go for a few years, me to go for a few years, our neighbor to go for a few years, any one of those listeners out there to go for a few years. And it wasn't meant to be a career. It was meant to be citizen legislators, citizen representatives. And back then, if you went more than a couple years and you didn't go back to the farm went to heck. And now it's become a career for a lot of these guys. These guys, their whole life is going to Washington. And I think they lose touch when you look at, where they get their contributions from. My opponent in any election cycle will get anywhere from 60 to 75% of his contributions from outside the district. So you got to ask yourself, why is a guy who works for Morgan Stanley in New York giving our guy in Wheaton all this money to run for office? We basically are running a grassroots, and I think a lot of the politicians, and particularly the Republicans in this last group, have lost their way. I think they get more involved in wanting to maintain their status in Washington, their power base, and I think they forget that they're supposed to be representing the people where they came from. And I think, I want to send a message that a guy can come out who's just a guy who's working in the community, a good, solid person can go out and challenge an incumbent, win, and do a good job. And I hope that I'm there for a short time. And I would term limit myself out, and I hope guys behind me come. And there's already some guys volunteering in our campaign that said, Dr. Kinzler, we're going to challenge you in a few years. And I said, that's what this is all about. I want you guys to run, and they're already working on their websites. And I hope if I can win, we can send a message to these guys that other people can do it. And think how great our country can become again if you've got a bunch of just decent, hardworking citizens running for office, having a shot at it, and doing it. And it's very uplifting for me to see that spirit.
So you're obviously in favor of term limits, and we don't have them right now. So would you impose a term limit on yourself?
I would definitely impose a term limit on myself.
And how many terms would that be?
I think 2 terms to 4 terms, for a 2-year type stint. I think if you can't get something accomplished in 8 years, then you should definitely move aside. I foresee a shorter period than that. I think at least with Congress, with the House of Representatives, it was meant for a turnover. That's why they have an election every 2 years.
So let me ask you, you'd made the comment that your opponent is receiving campaign funds from outside of Illinois.
Right.
So if you win, you go to Congress, you get to meet these people, the special interests, and you start to run again, and they show up and say, Jay, here's some money for your campaign. I know we're in New York, and I know we're Morgan Stanley, according to your example. What would you do? Would you turn the money down, or would you take it?
I'd have to cross that bridge when I come to it. My guess is there's not going to be a whole lot of people contributing to me because that's just not kind of the guy who I am. I mean, I remember back in the days when I was in medical school, the pharmaceutical companies would come and give us textbooks and things or offer us textbooks. And I was the only guy that said, that's okay. I had my own roofing business with my brothers, and I made enough money to buy my own textbooks. And I just never felt right taking them, and I never took them. And to this day, the reps come, and I love them. I mean, they're doing their job. They're salespeople. I always am very courteous to them, and I listen to their information, and I take their information. But I don't even do lunches. I don't have them do lunches in our office. I've just never been that way. I don't like to be tainted. I don't like to be partial in those type of ways. So that's just kind of who I am. I mean, fortunately, I've been in a profession that I make a good living. I do okay, and money doesn't really motivate me per se, and so that's kind of how I've dictated my life. So,
why do you think you would be a better choice to represent Illinois than your opponent?
Well, we have to look, since 2010, when the Democrats really gerrymandered our districts, they basically picked up essentially 3 Democrat seats by reconfiguring District 6. District 6 used to be pretty much of a square that encompassed Elmhurst, Addison, Phillip Park, Glen Ellen, Wheaton. And now if you look at it, it's like a big C that goes all the way down to Burr Ridge, comes up to Barrington, Bartlett, and then comes all the way around to Lake Zurich. They basically did what's called packing. They packed all the Republicans into that district so they could take the Democrats and put them in the surrounding districts to give those seats. Our District 6 is one of the most conservative Republican districts in the United States. This district will always go Republican. It will always be conservative. They should have a very conservative representative. Our guy is not voting conservative lately. He just voted for the omnibus bill with 166 Democrats. There was a bigger percentage of Democrats 6-7 weeks ago that voted on that bill with Obama than Republicans voted on that bill. And that bill fully funded Planned Parenthood, actually increased funding. It did nothing to stop the unvetted Syrian refugees coming in, did nothing to stop the amnesty rules that Obama's been just passing without any kind of congressional oversight. It quadrupled the H-2B visas, which are taking American jobs and also further burdening the social network and the social costs of American taxpayers. It hasn't really done significant amounts to help our military, and it blew another $1.2 trillion hole in our debt ceiling. So this was a Democrat bill that our supposable Republican representative, my opponent, voted for. So, and there's a whole bunch of other things we can talk about, as the show unfolds.
Well, this is Brad Hayes. You're listening to the Property Tax Show, and with me in the studio is Dr. Jay Kinzler. He's a candidate for U.S. Congress, District Number 6. And I want to ask you, you talked about conservatism. What is your definition of conservatism? And we've got about 30 seconds before we go to break, so if we have to come back to that, we will.
Okay.
But it looks like we're going to take a break right now. So we will be back after this commercial break.